Hey friends, today on the Brave and the Boys, we are taking it back to my origin of DC, which was Super Friends and Justice League, the old cartoons. So what I did is I picked some of my favorite Justice League heroes, and I'm giving you my favorite standalone story for each one of those heroes. They're going to be, in my mind, the definitive story for that hero. If you like the video, go ahead and click the like button. Ring that bell for notifications, comment down below who'd be on your Justice League lineup, and if you want to pick up any of these books and support the channel, you can save $2 on 1 to 3 books using the code Braveboys, or if you're buying 4 or more, you can save 5% with the code Braveboyssit. Let's dive in.
Deep within a bleak and dismal swamp, hidden beneath its murky waters, lies the headquarters of the most sinister villains of all time, the Legion of Doom.
Up first, a character that has to be on every Justice League in my mind, we have the Man of Steel, Superman. Now, you guys know I love Superman. I just recently did my top 10 Superman reads, and you can watch that video here, and this book was on that list. It wasn't number 1, but I think this is an awesome definitive story because it's an origin. Now, there's a lot of origins to Superman. In fact, when I was doing my list, I found out most of the popular Superman stories were either his origin or his death, which I thought was kind of funny. But for a definitive origin to the Man of Steel, I gotta give it to Superman Birthright. Superman Birthright was done by Mark Waid and some excellent artists that I'll have listed down below. And to me, this is the definitive origin. So this is a Superman that's more alien, a little more worldly. He travels the world. He didn't just go from Smallville to Metropolis. He spent time in Africa. There he made some friends. There he experienced some loss. And he is trying to uncover his origin. And there's a really just heartfelt, touching moment when he's back in Smallville with his father and he sees the alien ship. His father just gets mad and hits it with a baseball bat, and Clark flies him up into the sky and he's like, "Hey, what's wrong, man?" And his father just goes, I just wanted to be your father. And he's like, "You are my father." And as someone who's adopted, that was something that I really cherish. So I love this. The relationship between him and Lex Luthor are amazing in this. You get to see their friendship and their falling out in Smallville in the past, and then you get to see how their relationship changed in Metropolis, and it is an excellent story. So for all those reasons and more, you got to read Superman Birthright. It's the definitive origin to the Man of Steel, and it had to be on my list for best standalone stories for my Justice League. Let's dive into the next one. In my mind, every Justice League needs to have the Trinity, so we have the second member of the Trinity, the Caped Crusader. Now, you guys know I love me some Batman. If you guys want to watch my top 10 Batman stories, you can watch that video here, and I've talked ad nauseum about how much I love the Loeb and Tim Sale trilogy, but I'm gonna talk about it one more time. So this is gonna be a year 2, a better year 2 than Batman year 2. But if you do want to watch a review of year 2, you can watch that on our sister channel right here from Brave Boys Beyond. Jordan does an excellent overview of that book. So what is the Loeb trilogy? It's gonna start out with The Long Halloween, which tells the story of the holiday killer picking off members of the mob. And it's a great mystery. You get to see the Caped Crusader's detective side, you know, the world's greatest detective side, come out, and it really keeps you guessing. And even in the end, it leaves you with more questions than answers. That's going to be followed up by Batman Dark Victory. That's going to take a lot of the loose ends and left up questions of The Long Halloween and turn them on their head. It's also going to be the origin of Robin, who's one of my favorite DC characters, and I think a character that makes Batman better. And then lastly, you have Haunted Knight. Haunted Knight's going to be a couple standalone stories and the sequel spinoff, Catwoman When in Rome. All of these are excellent stories. I could go on and on about how much I love them. It's going to have mystery, action, adventure, everything that you want in a Batman story. And it is, in my mind, the definitive Batman story. Now let's get to the third member of the Trinity, Wonder Woman. Rounding out the Trinity, we have Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is an amazing character that I am just beginning to explore deeper. There's a lot of amazing Wonder Woman runs out there, but to me, the best that I've read was Gail Simone's Wonder Woman. Gail Simone is an amazing writer. Her Secret Six Omnibus, which I've never read, is one of my most hyped up books of the year. And reading this book just felt like I was reading a book that should always be in print, should always be evergreen, and I'm so happy they brought this back into print because this was famously out of print for a while. So this is going to take place after Infinite Crisis and the follow-up event, Amazonian's Attack, which I haven't read and I heard wasn't very good, but this is going to show Wonder Woman trying to balance a secret identity as Diana Prince and take a lot of the things about Wonder Woman that are important, a lot of the parts of her character and her identity, and turn them on her head. There's a couple of arcs in here that are really special. The Circle tells the story of 4 Amazonian guardswomen sworn to the Queen who say we'll protect the Queen no matter what. And they feel like Wonder Woman is an abomination. She's against everything the Amazonians stand for, and they turn against the Queen. And that's so interesting to me, because usually Wonder Woman is regarded as a savior, as a goddess, as a princess, as a queen, and to be viewed, they call her the dragon. Gail Simone cuts to the very core of Wonder Woman's character by making her lose everything that makes her Wonder Woman. She has to deal with her grace, her forgiveness, her compassion, her love, her secret identity, her heritage as an Amazonian, and even her mother's history. And from there, the story just keeps growing, and more layers of Diana are stripped away. There's an awesome battle of gods and monsters and demons and everything, and it's a fantastic story. But at the end of it, it helps me realize why Wonder Woman is so important, why she's as important as Batman and Superman, because her power isn't her strength or her speed, even though she is incredibly strong and incredibly fast. Her power is her compassion and her grace. She shows enemies big and small forgiveness and empathy and compassion. And through it all, she is good and she is kind. She's gentle, but she's also a fierce warrior. And you get to really hear her thoughts and see where she's at with everything. And it really just made me fall in love with the character. We're also going to give an honorable mention to Wonder Woman Dead Earth, written and drawn by Daniel Warren Johnson. This is one of my most hoped for absolutes. It's an incredible storyline. This is going to be a apocalyptic metal balls to the wall future where Wonder Woman wakes up, she's weakened, she doesn't have her memory, and she has to discover how the world ended and what she can do to save the remaining humans. There are moments in this book that my jaw absolutely dropped, parts that were crazier that I can't believe DC allowed Daniel Warren Johnson to get away with. Some of the battles in this are absolutely insane, and you have to read it. However, as much as I love this book, I feel like this book shows all sides of Wonder Woman and shows how she interacts with the DC universe and why she's such a classic, important hero. But if you want to read a badass Wonder Woman story, you gotta read this one too. Now that we have the Trinity out of the way, let's look at some of the other heroes. Now we have when I think the pitchforks are gonna come out. Trying to define a definitive Flash book is a lot harder than you think, because who the Flash is changes depending on who you ask. There are numerous Flashes throughout DC's storied history. Barry Allen, Wally West, Bart, and everybody really just fiercely loves their Flash. But to me, I have to give it to the Flash that was the founding member of the Justice League, Barry Allen. This was part of the Rebirth relaunch and was actually the first Flash story that I bought all the single issues of. So I was reading this week to week. So the story has to do with Barry Allen and his best friend August. And what happens, there's just this crazy electrical storm, and suddenly all over Central City, people have the Flash powers. So it's pretty crazy because usually there's just 1 to 2 speedsters. I love this story because it's going to have both Wally Wests in it, the new 52 Wally West and the pre-Flashpoint Wally West. So you get to see how they all interact with each other. And you get to see Barry take on a mentor teacher role to both August and all of these other Central City people who are granted Flash powers. Along the way, it introduces a villain who has one of the coolest Flash outfits ever, Godspeed, and who he is might shock you. It's going to have to do a lot with the Black Hole Gang, and it sets up a lot of things later on that you just have to read to find out. This is also getting an omnibus. I think it comes out in March or April, so I'm definitely going to pick that up. This will actually be a triple dip for me because I have the single issues at my parents' house, I have the deluxe editions, and I'm going to get the Omni when it comes out. So The Flash by Joshua Williamson is a fantastic ride. It has amazing moments. It crosses over with the Rebirth Batman a few times, and I love the art. And this to me is just such an easy Flash story to jump into. Okay, let's move on to the next hero. Next, we'll move on to the King of the Seas, the next member of our Justice League roster, Aquaman. Now, I have to be honest, I have not read a lot of Aquaman. The only Aquaman I've read before this was the one-issue crossover with the old Hanna-Barbera shark Jabberjaw, who I famously called Jabberwocky and never heard the end of it. This just felt like I was reading a book that should always be evergreen. Like, it just felt like a definitive, refreshed take on Aquaman. And I gotta give it to Jeff Johns. He crafted a story that made me just care about Aquaman. It made me feel empathy for Aquaman, and the action was phenomenal. So I love the first issue because it plays with a lot of our thoughts on Aquaman. I mean, no one's like, Aquaman's my favorite superhero. Everyone's always thought Aquaman was a little lame. So it opens with him saving some police officers, and they go, oh my God, we got saved by Aquaman. We're never going to hear the end of it. And then later he goes to a fish restaurant he used to go to with his dad, and someone's like, dude, you're Aquaman. You can't eat fish. Don't you talk to fish? And he's like, I don't talk to fish. I command them. So it was just so funny that they were super meta about a lot of those things. There's awesome like villains like the Trench, which were these underwater creatures you might remember from the movies. And that's another thing that I learned. When I was reading this, I was like, oh, that was the inspiration for that part of the Aquaman movie or that part of Aquaman 2. But there's less peeing in each other's mouths, because the less I say about the Aquaman 2 movie, the better. Did not like that movie. Here, that's my hot take. Aquaman 2, not very good. But there are interesting characters such as Volko, Orm, Black Manta. You get to see a lot of his relationship with Mira and how Mira and him try to interact with the human world. You get to see him raise a dog, which is coming. Who doesn't want to see Aquaman with the dog? And the dog doesn't even know how to swim. You get to see Aquaman's cool past with Black Manta, where he fought them with the team called the Others. Never heard of the Others before. They all had really cool powers, and some of the powers kind of sucked. Like it seemed really shitty. Like the power to like the isolation of space. I don't want that superpower. It's gonna cross over a little bit with Justice League, so it does double dip with the Justice League Omnibus, but that's okay. You get to read both, and this just tells a great story, and by the end of it, I was like, I want more, but there's not more. So this is my Aquaman pick. Let me know down in the comments below, what is your Aquaman pick? Let's move on to the next hero. Now we're gonna move on to the book that gave me the very idea and inspiration for this video. Justice League, the World's Greatest Superheroes by Paul Dini and Alex Ross. So this is a very underrated absolute, and it's getting reprinted, and you have to read it, because this whole video, I could have picked this book for every single hero, because the way Paul Dini writes them, that's backed up by Alex Ross's paintings, every moment just felt so amazing. So what this is a couple magazine digest stories, one for Superman, one for Batman, one for Wonder Woman, and one for the Justice League, and lastly, one for Shazam. So my pick for Shazam, Billy Batson, is Shazam, The Power of Hope, and oh my God, I was bawling by the end of the story. So what Shazam, The Power of Hope is Billy's been Shazam for a while, and it's a burden. Do you ever think about how crazy it would be to be an adult superhero with the power and responsibility of Superman, but then also be a child? Like, that's crazy. That's too much burden for any one person. And he's starting to lose the wonder and amazement and adventure of being Shazam. So Billy is reading fan mail addressed to Shazam, and in there he saw a letter from a children's hospital saying the kids would love for Captain Marvel or Shazam to visit the children's hospital. And this reminds Billy of something that the wizard Shazam told him once. He said, someday you are going to be faced with a child who lost his hope or lost their hope, and you are going to help that child restore their hope. So he goes, this has to be it. He just feels it. He just feels it in his heart, and he goes to this children's hospital. He spends the weekend with them, and he does everything from being with a child in their final moments to confronting an abuse victim's father to taking some kids on flying and down to the ocean and to the rainforest. And it is an amazing story. And watching Shazam restore the hope to these children, and one special child in particular, will really bring a tear to your eye. It's an amazing story. But to be honest, this book is amazing. This could have been the book I chose for every single one of my Justice League heroes. There's even Justice League issues in the back that show why every member of the league, big and small, are important. And I cannot recommend this book enough, but this is my favorite Shazam story. You gotta read it. Now, every Justice League needs a Green Lantern, and it is definitely not going to be Guy Gardner or Kyle Rayner. Sorry, Kyle Rayner fans. Learn how to spell compendium correctly, DC. So Jeff Johns' Green Lantern fixed the character after all the 90s craziness and him being a villain known as Parallax. It sets him off at a great stage to be the definitive Green Lantern in the DC universe. If you want to read the full story, it's 3 omnis, and if you want even more Green Lantern goodness, you can read the Green Lantern Corps Omnibus, you can read the Blackest Night Omnibus, which gives you way more context to the whole universe and not just Hal Jordan-centric stuff. But they have famous arcs such as the Sinestro Corps War, where the Green Lantern have like the sickest moment ever where they go lethal force engaged. It just gave me chills. Then you got the Blackest Night, which is like absolutely balls to the walls crazy. It's gonna have famous arcs that just had lasting impact on the DC universe. And if you only ever read one Green Lantern saga in DC, it's got to be this one. It is phenomenal, and it's just an epic sweeping saga that was just a joy to read. Now let's move on to another Green Justice Leaguer. Next up, we have a character that I loved ever since I was a kid, before I even knew comics existed, and that is Green Arrow. Green Arrow had such an amazing perspective on the Justice League Unlimited cartoon. He was a huge part of Smallville, and the Arrow TV show was just so impactful to me growing up. And it's crazy to think how pivotal the Mike Grail run was. So what this does is it strips away the gimmicks. He's not using punching glove arrows and trick arrows, and he's not Robin Hood in tights in Star City. This is gritty, just gritty. It's question level gritty. He fights serial killers and drug dealers, and it's just a corrupt, grimy Seattle, and he just uses an old school bow and arrow, and it's phenomenal. So the first arc is going to be him dealing with the Seattle slasher, which, I mean, yikes. I mean, he's not fighting supervillains. He's fighting like a serial killer. Yeah, this is not for young readers, but I love what it did for the character. It gave me the same tone as the Question Omnibus, which I'm reading now, the second volume, and it's phenomenal. It set the stage for so much of what I loved in the future, and it's just such a definitive take on the Emerald Archer. Now let's move on to our last Green Justice Leaguer. Okay, guys, I gotta level with you for the last one. I have to cheat. I'm sorry. I went to 3 comic book shops. I scoured Amazon looking for a standalone Martian Manhunter story. I know there's some that were recommended to me. There's some great Martian Manhunter JLA stories. There's the Ostrander run. There was like a maxi series where the art looked really crazy. But I couldn't find any of them in print anywhere. And that's just, I think some of it has to do with the nature of the character. He is the heart of the League. He's the brain of the League. He's the one that connects everybody together. Because for John, he isn't like Superman. He's an alien outsider, but he's never gonna fully connect because he doesn't look like an Earthling. He's always gonna look like an outsider. He's always gonna feel alone. And that's why the League is his home. It's his family. It's the first humans that look past what he looks like and connect with him. And in my mind, there's no better definitive story to Martian Manhunter than in Darwin Cook's magnum opus, New Frontier. Now, New Frontier is in my top 5 DC books of all time. It is a love letter to the Silver Age, a love letter to the League, and it tells a phenomenal origin story to our Martian friend. So it's going to start by him being teleported by a scientist to Earth, and when the scientist sees him, he's so scared of what he looks like, he has a heart attack. So what does he do? He uses his Martian abilities to transform into a human, and he plays the role of detective. And what I love about it is he tries to learn human history and learn this new planet by watching TV, and it's phenomenal. There's great moments with him and Batman. I love when Batman's like, I spent millions of dollars learning how to take down the Metropolis alien. With you, I just need 10 cents and a box of matches. So it's amazing. I love it. I love that he learns to find a family and learns to get connected to this Earth. And every Justice League needs a Martian Manhunter. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Let's jump into my final thoughts. And that's going to bring us to the end of the video. Now, when I said these were the definitive story for each of the Justice League members, I am guessing I am going to get some different opinions from you. So just remember, these were my opinions. If you have a story that you think is a better, more definitive story for each of these heroes, if you think there was a hero that I left out that should have been in my Justice League, let me know in the comments. Tell me what books to read. I still have thousands of comic books to read in the world. These were just, in my mind, the definitive stories to my definitive Justice League. If you liked the video, go ahead and smash that like button, ring the bell for notifications, comment down below what your favorite superhero is, and if you want to pick up any of these books and support Jordan and I so that we can keep making videos like this, you can buy any of these books from our sponsor, Organic Price Books. There, if you're buying 1 to 3 books, you can save $2 with the code Braveboys, or if you're buying 4 or more, you can save 5% with the code Braveboyssit. We will earn a small commission that helps fund these videos because books can get a little expensive, and honestly, it's just a great way to support Jordan and I. Thank you all so much for watching. Keep reading and stay brave.